It started harmless enough, or so I thought. I'd just finished a rough work week, looking forward to an overdue weekend of doing absolutely nothing. I cracked open a beer, stepped out back, and nearly dropped the bottle when I saw her. There she was, Karen, mid-40s, bleached hair tied in that tight mom bun, sunglasses at dusk, floating on one of my pool loungers like she owned the damn place. My pool, on my property, without so much as a knock on the door. She saw me, raised her hand with that smug little wave, and said, "Oh, hope you don't mind. It's just so hot, and your pool looked so inviting." I should have kicked her out right then, but I didn't. I was so thrown off. I just stood there like an idiot while she splashed lazily and complimented the landscaping. It wasn't the first time Karen had overstepped. She lived 2 houses down in our suburban cul-de-sac, divorced, 2 yappy dogs, and an ego the size of her tacky SUV. She had that entitled tone like she expected the world to accommodate her every mood swing. But using my pool without asking? That was a new level of ballsy. That night, I let it go. Maybe she was just being weird, I told myself. It was hot. Maybe she got carried away. Whatever. But 2 nights later, I looked out my upstairs window around 9 p.m., and there she was again. Same flow tie. Same smug expression. This time, she brought wine. Oh, hell no. I walked outside and called out, "Karen, seriously, what are you doing?" She didn't even flinch. Just smiled like we were old pals. "It's so quiet in your yard. Peaceful. Way better than mine. Hope it's okay. I just let myself in." She let herself in. The audacity. My gate had a latch, sure, but it wasn't locked. Until now, I'd never imagined needing to lock it. But apparently, that was my mistake. I gritted my teeth. "Karen, you can't just come over here whenever you feel like it." She tilted her head, wine glass raised. "Oh, come on, don't be uptight. It's just a swim." I didn't want drama. I didn't want to be that guy who turned the neighborhood into a war zone. So I stayed calm and told her, flat out, not to do it again. She promised she wouldn't. She lied. The next week, I installed a lock on the side gate. Nothing fancy. Just a basic latch with a padlock. Problem solved, right? Wrong. Karen found another way in. Apparently, she'd noticed the fence panel behind the shrubs had a loose board. One evening, I came home from dinner and saw wet footprints on the concrete. The kind that only come from someone climbing out of your pool. I followed the trail to the back corner, and there it was. A bent board, slightly ajar. She was sneaking in like a damn raccoon. That was the moment I realized. This wasn't ignorance. It was entitlement. Karen knew exactly what she was doing. And she didn't care. No shame. No apology. Just that condescending, patronizing smile whenever I brought it up. I thought we were neighbors. "Don't you believe in sharing?" she once said, as if I was the villain for not donating my backyard to her spa night routine. At that point, I started documenting everything. Dates, times, photos of footprints. Even caught a blurry phone video of her walking back through the shrubs in her ridiculous leopard print robe. I wasn't just annoyed anymore. I was insulted. She was testing me, trying to see how much she could get away with. How many times she could violate my space before I either snapped or gave up. Well, guess what? I don't snap. I plan. Once I made the decision to strike back, I didn't rush. Revenge isn't about rage. It's about precision. I let her keep swimming for a few more nights, even left the loose board untouched. Gave her just enough rope to feel safe. Entitled people like Karen? They always hang themselves if you give them time. Meanwhile, I got to work. Step 1, information. I dug into her life. Nothing too deep, just what anyone with a nose for gossip and a few neighborhood connections could gather. Turned out Karen was struggling more than she let on. Maxed out credit cards. Constant Amazon deliveries she couldn't afford. A divorce settlement that barely covered her HOA fees. She was one bad month away from financial collapse, and hiding it behind wine-fueled pool parties for one. Perfect. She needed my pool like a junkie needs a fix. It wasn't just about the swim. It was about pretending she still had something resembling control, luxury, peace. So I made sure to keep that illusion alive. I even smiled at her one afternoon while we were both getting mail. Asked if she was enjoying the cooler weather. She smiled back, thinking she'd won. Smug little parasite. Step 2, the pool cam. I installed a discreet night vision camera under the eaves facing the pool, motion activated, silent, unblinking. I wanted proof. Not just for revenge, but in case she ever tried to pull some legal stunt. 2 nights later, I got the footage I needed. Karen, in full view, slipping through the shrubs just after 10 p.m. Robe, wine glass, even her stupid Bluetooth speaker. She set it on the poolside table and played soft jazz like this was some 5-star resort. She didn't even glance at the house. Didn't think she needed to. That footage? Gold. It would be part of my final play. But before I got to the grand finale, I needed one last thing, the product. I made a few calls. Talked to a friend of mine, owns a septic service company. Let's just say we go way back. I asked him how hard it would be to accidentally pump some non-potable, extremely unpleasant fluid into a sealed container I could discreetly transfer into my pool filter. His response: "What are we talking here, brownish or full nightmare?" I smiled. "Let's go full nightmare." He delivered the tank 2 days later, while Karen was at her weekly yoga class. I transferred it into the pool filter myself that evening, about an hour before her usual break-in window. Gloves on, masked up, no smell yet, just enough pressure that, once the pump activated, it would distribute evenly and efficiently. It was a beautiful setup. Clean. Surgical. I even put out a fresh towel. Let her think it was her lucky night. And oh, it was. Just not in the way she expected. At exactly 10:14 p.m., the motion alert pinged my phone. She was right on schedule. There she was, captured in glorious 1080p. Karen squeezing her over-tanned frame through the fence, clutching a wine bottle in one hand, speaker in the other. She wore a swimsuit that hadn't been in style since the early 2000s, and that same smug grin that made my blood boil. She tossed her towel on the lounger, kicked off her sandals, and dipped a toe in. Then both feet. She waded in like royalty returning to her throne. And then, the pump kicked on. Now, the beauty of sewage, real, uncut septic horror, is that it takes a few moments to really spread. The smell doesn't hit right away. At first, it just seems a little off. Karen swam a few lazy laps, wine in hand, clearly enjoying herself. Then, as she drifted to the deep end, I saw it, that twitch of the nose. Subtle, confused. She paused mid-stroke, sniffed the air, and that's when the darkness bloomed around her, a cloudy, brownish swirl rising from the filter jets like a horror movie fog machine. Her expression twisted. She dipped a hand beneath the surface, brought it up to her face. And then she screamed. A raw, unfiltered, blood-curdling screech that echoed across the neighborhood like a banshee being waterboarded. I stepped out onto the back patio, calm as a monk, sipping tea like I'd just woken up from a nap. "Everything all right, Karen?" She thrashed to the edge, slipping, cursing, choking on God knows what. She clawed her way out of the pool, dripping in filth, gagging, spitting, crying. It was a full-body meltdown. Her leopard print robe was ruined. Her wine bottle had shattered. Her Bluetooth speaker? Drowned. "What is this?" she screamed, dry heaving onto my concrete. "What did you do?" I didn't blink. "I told you to stop coming into my yard. You didn't listen." She was sobbing now, flailing like a toddler denied candy. "This is illegal. I'm calling the police." I smiled. "Please do. I have footage of every time you trespassed on my property. Want me to send it to them? Or maybe the HOA?" She froze. I walked over, pulled my phone from my pocket, and tapped the screen. A still image of her entering through the fence filled it. Night after night. "Want to explain this to your insurance? Or your ex-husband's lawyer?" Her lips trembled. She ran, barefoot, dripping with contaminated pool water, shrieking as she vanished into the night like a horror story footnote. And me? I sat down, took a sip of tea, and turned off the pool lights. You'd think that'd be the end of it. That after being baptized in raw sewage, Karen would crawl back into her tacky little cave and never show her face again. Wrong. Karen doesn't go quietly. The next morning, I got a knock at the door. 2 officers. Polite, professional, clearly bored. "Sir," one of them said, "we got a complaint about some kind of incident involving your pool." I played dumb, because I could afford to. "Oh, that? Yeah. My neighbor trespassed again. Unfortunately, there was a maintenance issue. She wasn't supposed to be here. They exchanged a look. She claims you set a trap. I gave them the smile. You know the one, polite, borderline pitying. I have security footage of her entering my property illegally. Repeatedly. Would you like to see it? Turns out, they would. I showed them the time-stamped videos. Karen sneaking in through the fence, night after night. No invite. No permission. Just her, a wine glass, and more nerve than brain cells. The officers nodded, made some notes, and left. I never heard from them again. But Karen? She exploded. Apparently, word had already started spreading. Our cul-de-sac isn't exactly Beverly Hills, but it's tight-knit. And people noticed the commotion, the screaming, the stench. Within days, her humiliation was the hottest gossip on every porch and group chat. She swam in what? No way, you're making that up. Did she really trespass multiple times? And you know how suburban women are. The same neighbors who used to wave at her during morning dog walks were now pretending not to see her, whispering behind their hedges. Moms snatched their kids away when she got too close. Karen had become the pool lady. The HOA even sent her a formal letter about violating property boundaries. But I wasn't done. See, I still had the footage. And since Karen was so fond of making things public, I figured, why not return the favor? I uploaded a short clip to a private neighborhood Facebook group, nothing graphic. Just her sneaking in, swimming, and screaming as she scrambled out. Caption: friendly reminder, stay in your own yard. And smiling emoji. The post didn't last long. Moderators pulled it down within an hour, but the damage? Permanent. She confronted me the next day, this time fully clothed but twice as unhinged. You ruined my life, she shouted. I didn't even look up from trimming my hedge. No, Karen, you ruined your own life. I just made sure everyone saw it. Her face twisted into something between rage and regret. That was the last time she ever spoke to me. She put her house up for sale a week later. Karen's house sat on the market for nearly 2 months. No one wanted it at first, not after what happened. Word had gotten around. The sewage incident became local legend. Kids dared each other to sneak into her yard at night. Adults lowered their voices whenever her name came up. Eventually, a quiet couple from out of state bought the place. No idea what they were walking into. Karen packed up and left under cover of dawn. No goodbye, no apology, just a U-Haul and a cloud of burnt bridges smoke trailing behind her. And me? I got my yard back. I drained the pool completely, sanitized every inch, refilled it with fresh water, and installed a new motion sensor floodlight system, the kind that'll light up the whole backyard like a football stadium at the slightest movement. Just in case. But honestly, I doubt anyone will try me again. You don't get branded as the guy who filled his pool with sewage to teach a trespasser a lesson, and still have people lining up to test your boundaries. In fact, the neighborhood got quieter. People started waving a little more cautiously. One neighbor even dropped off a six-pack with a sticky note that said, "Pool's looking great. Just admiring from afar, promise." I appreciated that. In the end, it wasn't just about Karen. It was about the principle. You don't get to walk into someone else's space, smile like you're doing them a favor, and ignore every boundary. You don't get to call it sharing when it's really just stealing with a smirk. And if you do, well, you'd better pray the guy you're messing with doesn't have a septic hookup and a long memory. I've moved on. Life's been good, peaceful. But every so often, I sit out back with a drink, watch the pool lights shimmer across the water, and think about Karen. And I smile. Because in a world full of entitled people coasting on excuses, she finally learned what it feels like to get exactly what you deserve. Thank you for being with us. Please share in the comments where you are watching from and whether you liked everything, and see you next time.